start your engine!
Good evening, race fans. Welcome to the Hoobazoo Radio Network, and welcome to the Drafting the Circuits program. My name is Frank Santoroski. I'll be your host for the next hour as we talk about this past weekend in racing and preview next week. Joining me in the studio, I've got Richard Youden and Joey Barnes. Fellas, how we doing?
Good, thank you. Very good.
Yeah, doing good, guys. Thanks for having me on again.
Hey, man, Joey, it's always a pleasure to have you on. I know you stay busy, but whenever you have a little time for us, we sure appreciate your insights. So, and speaking of your insights, I know you pay a lot of attention to the IndyCar Series, and the NTT IndyCar Series was, in fact, in Gateway this past weekend. We saw it's like Nicolas Cage describing it. Fast cars and a lot of explosions. But
please,
I just had to get that in there. But we saw a pretty static race up front where we started off with Will Power winning the pole, record matching pole. He's now tied with Mario Andretti for the most pole positions ever in the IndyCar Series with 67 pole positions. So heck of an accomplishment there. And they pretty much dominated the race until we had a little bit of a differing strategy. Now, Joey, the call to leave Will Power out depends on who you ask. If Penske was trying to split strategy, or if Will's team just missed the opportunity to get in right when the pits were open, and they just flubbed it on their own. So what are you kind of hearing on that? Because the net effect is that it put McLaughlin and Newgarden out front, and it put Power well behind.
Well, I mean, if we know anything about Penske, it's they know how to cover their bases, right? So I think it was a split strategy, just kind of looking at the details of what they were trying to pull. But that would be the initial caution that really shook things up, because it was a Will Power runaway for the opening stanza of that race. I mean, literally the opening half, Will Power led 128 laps, a race high out of the 260 that were run. And then after the contact in turn 4 with Jack Harvey, a caution comes out. Literally the first one didn't hit till 145, and you got Newgarden and McLaughlin coming in, and it showed really quickly in a very unique way that fresh tires matter at Gateway, almost the same way that you'd look at them like a Worldwide Technology Raceway. I'm sorry, forgot that we got to rename it. But like I look at it, and it was reminiscent of a race at Old Atlanta or Darlington with the way the tire wear was. There was just such a supreme notion of that, and it was pleasant to see too, because it really wasn't something we had seen the entire weekend up to that point. I know that there was in a Texas-like special session the day before to kind of see what we could do with the second lane. 9 cars went out to try to run it and widen that groove similar to Texas earlier this year. And it wasn't really that racy in the opening part of it. And then the rain came, then the strategy happened. Newgarden drove through the field beautifully, but then it was kind of, and also ran still because it was about pace in front and track position. But after that rain hit, I tell you, and this thing turned into a night race. I mean, it makes me wonder why we're not running that race at 7 or 8 o'clock at night instead of trying to push up the start. I know because of weather, but we still screwed ourselves on that. And we're trying to do it earlier at 5 o'clock Central Time. Why not run it at 7 o'clock Central Time? Because I tell you, the race got electric after that. I mean, granted, a lot of that's due to David Malukas and Takuma Sato flying through the field. And to that other end, the teams that took fresh tires on that last pit stop after we resumed the race, the Marcus Ericssons, the Dixons, the Pelots, literally Chip Ganassi Racing, couldn't really do anything with it, which was kind of surprising after what we'd seen earlier. The rain getting washed off the track, or washing the rubber off the track a little bit. you'd figure that we were in store for a little bit more passing from that end with fresh tires. So it was interesting that was kind of a neutralizer, but it kind of speaks volumes to the fact that certain cars were able to come to life under the lights. One of those being Newgarden, who took the lead from McLaughlin right there just a lap after the resumption of the race. And then we saw Malukas do some really special stuff that, I mean, literally just, I said it earlier on social media, was the fact that he reminds me of a younger Joseph Newgarden, just reminiscent of what Joseph was at Ed Carpenter Racing, at Sarah Fisher Hartman Racing. There's just that personality, that quickness, that speed you see. And, Joseph 2.0 looks like he's destined to be a Penske driver unless HMD wants to have a little heavier investment in the series later on, which, keep in mind, HMD is Malukas's dad's, race team. So I think that I don't want to say a star is born, because that'd be a little not too fair to the rest of the guys, but let's just say that we finally got to see what some of these rookie classes are made of, with what Lundgaard has done, with what Malukas has done, and now we're kind of waiting to see what, and Callum Ilott too at Juncos, and we all know, we hear about Kyle Kirkwood's talent, and we don't know how much of that's due to AJ Foyt Racing, or how much of that's just due to certain circumstances outside of the control, because this series is so tough. So we'll get that answer next year at Andretti for sure, unless something changes in the last 2 weeks. But it was a really fun race at Gateway once we got resumed. The championship picture shaken up quite a bit. I joked and said it's kind of a tale of 5 different drivers on the championship. So from the consistency of Will Power, who's literally driving as flawless as we've ever seen him drive, maybe the best we've ever seen him drive in his entire career. The consistency's got him as a championship leader. Newgarden, he either wins or he finishes pretty far back, and he's right there in second. He's got the NASCAR style of win in advance kind of pace going on. And then you look at Dixon being Dixon. You look at Palou, no wins this year. All the off-season drama all the off-the-track drama you could hope to have for a single driver, reigning champion, kind of cast out even by his own team in so many ways, but he's still right there in the thick of this thing. And I mean, it's just, and McLaughlin's come on, it's just, not to mention Pato's pace as well, and Marcus Ericsson. It literally is still probably a 5-horse race with 2 rounds to go. And in any way you shake it, it's going to be a hell of a lot of fun.
Yeah, I just wanted to circle back onto something you mentioned earlier there, Jerry. The concept of the split strategy that Penske ran. Now, I know it all got a little bit sort of mixed up, because there's some guys out there obviously taking a gamble to try and just get in the optimum strategy at half distance in case it started to rain and all that sort of stuff. But I've been lucky in my career to work with some damn good strategy engineers over the years. And one of the things that I was always drummed into me is never do a split strategy, because you're always going to be wrong with one of them. Always strategize your individual car on its best merits. You should, unless there's very extreme circumstances, should you try and influence a race between 2 cars with different split strategies. And I really hope that isn't what happened here, because, then who gets, every strategy has an optimal strategy, and I'll guarantee you Penske will have some of the most advanced strategy analysis tools available in the series.
Well,
and they will have had a percentage, win ratio for each strategy available. And if they deliberately picked a less than optimal strategy for any of their drivers, I think it really, is a pretty poor play on their part, really.
Well, let me devil's advocate you on that real quick, if I may.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily disagree with you, because I do think that that's the mindset that needs to be had, but I'll go and do a twofold here. As I was saying earlier, the entire weekend, we hadn't really been shown a hand that the track was going to be aggressive with fresh tires. And as you know this, you've seen IndyCar racing for quite a long while, and with this universal aero kit that we have, the number one supreme thing that it hasn't, I mean, it's almost as guaranteed as death and taxes, right? Is is the fact that track position is king, because it's so hard to pass in this series. So when you look at the fact that Will Power had clean air, clean air out front, led all the way through, it was more or less a one groove racetrack, because even then, keep in mind, the opening 140 laps of that race, we didn't really have a ton of comers and goers. The only way that one person showed they could do anything was because Felix Rosenquist got a hell of a start of the race.
Oh yeah,
charging on the outside line, but once he fell in line, he is pretty much stuck there. So part of it, I think, I'm saying I wouldn't be surprised if it was a split strategy, because if you're Newgarden and McLaughlin, you're already behind. What have you got to lose? But in this case of Will, I mean, the track hadn't shown anything. Why not? So I'm not going to disagree with you about the split strategy thing, because certainly, come one, come all. Ganassi played by that boat, and honestly, all of the Ganassi guys got burned late. I mean, they were in a pretty comfortable spot to do some damage, but it was kind of astonishing to see that they couldn't really advance even in the top 5, if I remember right. So,
for sure. No, but I think what happens is when you split the strategy from a driver standpoint,
favoritism.
Well, favoritism, and also one of the driver is going to be thinking, well, am I on the optimum strategy here? Which strategy am I on? If they put me on the strategy to win the race, or the strategy not to lose the race, or where do I sit? And I think the driver's mentality is they want to know all the time that you've been given a strategy to win the race here. Not, well, we don't really know what to do. So, and obviously there are circumstances where that plays out. Wet races, some of these crazy races where, the strategy goes out the window a little bit. But what I would call Worldwide Technology Raceway, that race was a pretty stock IndyCar, short trip, mile and a quarter, whatever it is, oval race. There was nothing there that's going to cause. The only little thing was, I said, this racing to half distance. But outside of that, I think that you've got to do what your tools tell you, and you invest hundreds of thousands, if not maybe in a team like Penske's case, millions of dollars a year in these software tools, which, despite what people say, are pretty damn accurate. If you follow them over the course of a season, the 15, 17, 18 races, whatever it is, if you follow these strategy tools over the course of the season, you will come out on top, almost, by a significant margin compared to some of these, winging it calls that some strategists like to make. So yeah, from a driver standpoint, their mentality will be, well, what am I on here? Am I on the best strategy? And I think that backs the drivers into a corner a little bit and can sort of dampen their enthusiasm, as it were.
I'll tell you this too, to kind of echo a little bit of your point. When you look at everybody's pit stop sequences, there's only 2 drivers made 3 stops in that race and finished in the top 10. Pato O'Ward 4th, Will Power 6th. Everybody else in the top 10 that finished in the top 10, top 11 actually, made 4 stops. So I found that interesting, the fact that, yeah, they got a little bit more tire extension out of their stuff, and yeah, they were still able to get a solid finish, but it makes you wonder how different the pace would have been managed had that been a different story, if they were all on the same strategy. And it's just because that lap 145 hiccup. I want to throw you this though. This is going to sound so, hopefully this doesn't sound too bullish, because I'm not in that kind of a mood tonight.
Oh, come on.
But I'm sure I'll make a comment at some point. All I got to say is, Will Power goes in there with an 8-point lead. He leaves with a 3-point lead. Doesn't matter who's second. At the end of the day, he's still leaving with the lead. And there is such a calm, just cerebral way about him right now. Something that I've never seen in the last decade I've covered IndyCar. I've never seen Will this cerebral. I don't think gives one iota about anything right now. He's just in his own zone, in his own frame of mind. He's like, okay, on to Portland. All right, we go again. Like, it just,
yep.
And you know what? I love it, because his mentality's that. Newgarden's the fired up, I want to win them all. And Dixon's Dixon, right? And
yeah.
Look, I mean, I can't even get over. I wish I had it in front of me to to share, because I had a whole list of the top 6, but like I've said this to a few friends of mine, we've been dreaming so long in IndyCar for a Will Power versus Scott Dixon, like even in a race, mano a mano race. But now we're getting a Will Power Scott Dixon championship battle. And somewhere in there is Joseph Newgarden, who, whether people want to accept it or not, we should probably, if he continues this continued ascension within his career, he's going to be the Dixons and the Powers of the world in the next 10 years. I mean, he is on a rise. He is one of the most consistent. If you want to win that race that weekend, you know you're going to have to run through that team. And he has always consistently been up there in the top 3 the last handful of years. Since joining Penske, I think he's only finished outside of the top 3 once. Maybe not at all. I'd have to double check that. But, you know, it's just unreal the amount that he's extracted from himself during this run. And so while we're all talking about Will, and we're all talking about people were talking about Rossi a handful of years ago, Dixon being Dixon, it's Newgarden. And let's not forget, a couple of years ago, they were split on championships since Newgarden entered the IndyCar series. They both had drawn level at 2 championships apiece, and it was that deciding factor in 2020 that really kind of tipped the scales in Dixon's favor. But or maybe it was, I think it was 2020. But you look at all this, and it's the 3 best drivers the last handful of years. And Power at his best, Dixon doing what Dixon does, and Newgarden currently hitting another level. I mean, this is the best championship that I can remember.
Yeah.
And, it makes you wonder how different it would have looked if Dixon actually sealed Indy. And that's...
he would. Yeah, I mean, how many points did that cost him? We talked about this a couple of weeks ago on the show, didn't we, Frank? You know, he was 1 mile an hour away from having this title signed, sealed, and delivered by now.
Yeah, and it would have been virtually over at this point, no matter how good Power, his consistency has been. There's a disgusting stat on Power this year. He's only finished outside of the top 4 like 3 times. Just unreal pace. So.
Yeah, no, certainly. I mean, you know, we all looked at it. He had that little slump a couple of years ago, didn't he? Well, not slump. I mean, goodness me, relative slump. We all sort of looked at it, and it was, well, where's he going to go? But no, it was, it's been impressive for sure. What he's managed to get that sort of second win that towards the end of his career, and you got to take your hat off to him for sure.
It's the guy we've always wanted to see, isn't it? Like this guy who finally has seemed to have found himself in another way. Like, look, he's always been who he is, but and I don't know what he did over the offseason to change things, but he feels so at peace with himself that he's just sort of full attack.
Dare we say the Zen Will Power?
Oh, yeah. It'll be Zen until, well, I don't know. We almost got an unzen Will Power at Road America.
Almost, yeah. But he has been quite spectacular this year and wildly consistent, which is, again, really good to see. Because, I mean, people like you said, people ready to write him off not that long ago. But I did want to step back to the strategy for a little bit, because I've got something in the back of my mind regarding that strategy, whereas they were looking for the rain and perhaps that keeping Power out because he had the track position was maybe the call they wanted to make there in anticipation that maybe this race wouldn't go back to green. But I certainly didn't expect McLaughlin and Newgarden to be so fast on the new tires that they just carved right through the field.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, and it speaks volumes too to later in the race when we saw Malukas, if he goes to the high line, just 2 laps sooner, like with 4 to go instead of with 2 to go, we might be talking about a different winner. We might be talking about a first-time winner. I mean, which on that note, what the hell does Dale Coyne Racing got to do to get a win at Gateway? I mean, you think back to Bourdais and how quick Ferrucci was in those cars. Now you look at, Takuma this weekend and Malukas this weekend. It's like, despite the engineering turnover in there, and then, Grosjean being quick as hell last year there too in a Coyne car. I don't know what they got to do to get a W there, but man, I think Christopher Hardy, who's usually on this show too, and who writes with us at TobyChristie.com, was there was a mention. This is the 4th oval podium ever for Dale Coyne Racing. So just kind of remarkable in that sense.
Yeah, because they've got at least one oval win, right? Wilson won at Texas several years ago.
Correct.
Yep. So,
And Ed Jones being the most frequent oval podium, if I remember right, back in Indy. I think that was the other one. I don't know if there was one in between, but I'd have to double check. But yeah, but to your point, yeah, rain was coming. That's another reason to leave Will out. I know I keep getting off subject. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine. So, all right. So, yeah, we talked about Malukas, talked about power. Yeah. So we got a couple of weeks off before we go to Portland, or were we heading right there?
No, just this weekend off, and then we're in Portland for Labor Day weekend.
Right. So, yeah, that'll be exciting. Portland always a interesting track. I still don't know why they don't skip that festival curve on lap one. Because I guess maybe they just like the carnage. I've always thought if you just skip that on lap one and then pick it up later, we'd do better with that. But we can preview Portland next weekend. So, but let's talk a little bit about the NASCAR Cup race at Watkins Glen, where we had a truly international field with drivers from 7 different countries, which we've never seen in NASCAR before. And one of those being Richard, your old friend, Kimi Raikkonen. So, you want to talk about how Kimi fared in his first Cup start? Because I don't think he embarrassed himself at all. I think he impressed a lot of folks.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a little bit of a in the build up to it. I know NASCAR have been pushing this quite hard. There's 7 different nations competing, and in all fairness, it was pretty pathetic seeing some of the comments on social media about having these guys over. I think they should be encouraged and it should be embraced, and we should enjoy having some of these world-class drivers over here playing their trade and bringing a new dynamic to the series. I think people that complain about bringing these guys on board are pretty pathetic, really.
I mean, reading NASCAR social media comments is, something I only tend to try to do that when I feel like my IQ points need to be lowered. So,
but yeah, it was a shame to read some of those comments, I must admit, because I think they're, on the whole, people should be a little bit better than that and encouraging. I know it's not NASCAR and all this sort of stuff, but get over yourself, guys. Anyway, moving on. I
kind of appreciated that NASCAR's coverage of the international part, like comments from outside people aside. I appreciated that NASCAR, in some ways, it felt like they humbled themselves a little bit to actually honor people outside of those disciplines that were coming to race in their field and their accomplishments. And I thought that was awesome to see that exercise, because then you're actually broadening the reach of motorsports, not just trying to funnel it saying, oh, hey, yeah, you've come to our house now. And it's more of like, hey, this guy in F1 was absolutely epic. And then not to mention Rockefeller being in the field, and Joey Hand, a handful of others. It was good to see the diversity.
Joey Hand, yeah. Well, he's, road course specialist for sure, yeah. But no, I think, looking, if you isolate, Raikkonen's performance there, he'd done a shakedown at VAR. Oh, and people were complaining about that, how NASCAR had changed the rules to suit Kimi, to give him that shakedown at VAR. But I don't think that was the reason they changed the rules. I think it's good to try and give these guys a little bit of track time before they do jump into it in anger, because, he can be dangerous. If you don't want to be going through your rookie orientation with 40 of these other guys thrashing around next to you. But and of course, we do have to remember that Kimi has driven these, or not these cars, but a truck and an Xfinity car in the past. So it's not a completely new environment to him, but those are both on ovals. So, and this is the next gen car and the like. So yeah, it was a pretty new discipline. But, for him to jump in the car, have, what was it, like a 20-minute practice session on a Saturday morning, which had at least one red flag thrown in there. And then go straight into qualifying. Now, reading the report that qualifying was basically for Raikkonen an extended practice session. No concept of trying to do a fast lap, and he still managed to put it in there in P27 or something, and ahead of a couple of more experienced, regular NASCAR, racers. So that was pretty impressive. And then a pretty comfortable start to the race. I think he'd actually made his way before, and obviously in the wet, this was at the start of the race with the delay there. I think he'd made it up to about P20 or something before the pit stop started to happen. So he picked up a few spots early on, aided by a couple of guys falling back. but he picked up a few spots there, and then because through the pit stop cycles and people coming in to take dry tires earlier, he shuffled into the top 10, and I think at the end of stage 1 he was 10th, and then got into 9th after Gilliland lost an axle. But no, it was an impressive run without any hesitation. And if the race had run its course, I'm almost certain you'd have seen him top 20, maybe even the top 15 run. And for a guy who, never really driven or hasn't driven a car like that in 10 plus years, was a remarkable result. And Kimi's one of those guys that I think is just a natural driver. I think you see a lot of guys, from Formula One going to different disciplines and struggle a little bit, especially when they go into tin top racing, as opposed to open wheel. But I firmly, strongly believe that Kimi is just one of those raw talents that can drive anything fast. I mean, I think if you put him in an IndyCar, he'd be up there instantaneously. In the same way that Alonso was competitive, when he first went to the 500. And maybe some of the other guys aren't quite so competitive. But no, really, hats off to Kimi. Did a fantastic job. Fantastic drive. Unlucky to be caught out indirectly by Ross Chastain, surprisingly enough. But
Ross Chastain is now a verb, right? You've been chastained.
Yeah, to be chastained.
Yeah. So
teammates too at that point too.
Exactly.
Indeed, yeah. But I really don't think, apart from a finish, you could have asked for more from Kimi. And who knows? Would you like to see him back in the series? Yeah, because I think he could definitely bring something. He's still, 41, so he's not, on the young side of the scale, the spectrum. But he's, as fit as anything. Dare say it compared to a lot of the other guys he's racing against. But you've got to take it after the guy, and I really do hope he dips his toe back in there. Maybe for an oval as well, not just another road course, and gets a bit of time under his belt and can do some testing there and really develop it, because he, I think it's a breath of fresh air to the team and to the sport and the series. And I must admit, it was refreshing watching a post-race interview or a post-medical centre interview, for want of a better word, and the driver actually told you what happened rather than spouting off a list of his sponsors.
Yeah, I mean, I tell you what, I enjoyed, even after his initial practice run, whenever Parker Kligerman was of NBC Sports was over there talking with him, and actually getting, this, and we're all not immune to this. If you're going to ask Kimi stupid questions, you're going to get stupid answers. But the dialogue and the transitions, and Kimi actually breaking down what he felt, what he was learning, it was great to hear that kind of feedback on that too. I'm a little biased. I mean, I love me some Kimi Raikkonen. I think he's probably, to Richard's point, we talk about some of the best drivers in the world. I look at the last 25 years, I would say he's probably in the top 10 for the most adaptable talents that could transcend motorsports, because they could race. He's raced everything from rally to F1 to trucks to Cup. I'd like to see him in an IndyCar. If he goes to IndyCar, he'd probably be, I mean, Grosjean hadn't won an IndyCar yet, and Grosjean damn sure didn't win when him and Kimi were teammates while Kimi was winning at Lotus. So I don't know if Grosjean wants to see that, but.
Yeah. And it was refreshing to hear an interview with a driver who hasn't been through that, NASCAR media centric playbook of, you ask the question and he give you an answer, not the answer that the sponsors want to hear you say, and not the sort of faux aggressive answer that some of the drivers give. Kimi's like, he's giving real, genuine, honest answers, and is a breath of fresh air to the sport. I really think it is, and I think a lot of guys could learn from that. Everybody knows who sponsors are of cars, and you got it plastered all over your overalls. It's one of the things that I hate about NASCAR is the way that the drivers just spout out the name of their sponsors parrot fashion in every answer to every question. It's like, oh, we had a great car today. The guys worked hard. You were running 30th. You didn't have a great car. The guys weren't working hard. Don't give that corporate put it bluntly, bullshit every week. Tell it how it is. If you're running 30th and the handling was bad and you hit the wall, say the car was crap and we need to work harder. Not this, oh, you know, my guys work. No, come on. You know, say it how it is. I hate this, like, powder puff answer they always give to a lot of these questions. You know, Kimi's great. I love him for that.
Yeah, Kimi's always been kind of no holds barred in an interview. He'll tell you exactly what's on his mind.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But,
I mean, guys, if he ever was in NASCAR full time with the big team, the PR people would have a stroke every time he had to give an interview.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, my gosh, to see him holding off, what was it? Was it Chase Elliott?
Chase, yeah,
Chase,
he blocked him.
Chase Elliott, who's NASCAR's resident road course ace. Yeah, Kimi took that boy to school for a little bit before he let him go. So
no, it's great.
I was vague. I was honestly kind of hoping that after he got punted in the tire barrier, he'd just get out and go find a boat somewhere, sit on it, watch the rest of the race, because there was enough rain there. I'm sure there was something outside, but you know, reminiscent of the old McLaren days at Monaco.
Yep, just go home, sit on a boat.
Sit in a boat, yeah. So let's talk about the rest of the race, other than Kimi, which we did have a wet start, which is very, you know, uncommon in the Cup Series. We've seen a number of
third time, I think, wasn't it?
I was going to say, we've seen a number of Xfinity races run in the rain, but it's kind of, you know, they've lucked out a little more in the Cup Series. So, I mean, hats off to the guys. They got through the first couple of laps rather cleanly. You know, a couple guys spun off, but no contact. And of course, again, we're talking about NASCAR at Watkins Glen, where track limits mean nothing. But it was.
Did NASCAR, in all fairness, NASCAR did sort of chicken out a little bit and go for the single file start and restart.
Yes.
You know, come on. It's one of these things that frustrates me when they do things like this. Now, I understand when it's dangerous. I get danger. I understand that part of it. But these guys are in the upper echelon. Even the guy who's running 40th is still in the upper echelon of drivers in the world. They can drive in the rain, and they can drive too wide on a restart in the rain. Don't give it all this crap of, oh, well, you know, just too wide restarts and starts. Come on, get on with it, boys. Sorry.
Yeah, it is odd those guys are afraid of a little rain. Yeah, because but anyway, so I mean, we saw a couple of guys have good performances all day. Michael McDowell was right in the mix a lot of day, as was Tyler Reddick. Obviously, Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson were dueling for the win there at the end. The little contact between the two of them on the last restart, which turned out to be. I think the announcers were making that to be much more controversial than actually was. Yeah, it didn't look like much to me, but it was so funny in the post-race interview. The whoever was interviewing Chase Elliott there was like
fishing for an answer.
He was trying to goad something out of him. How are you what are you gonna say when you get back to the shop? And Chase, of course, just toed the corporate line and said, "Want to congratulate Kyle. He did a great job. Great for the team that we get a win." And blah 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 blah. Wasn't having any of it. So it was because I had to watch the replay. I'm like, okay, I'm not sure what was so bad here. It's not as if
he ran him wide. You know, it's a classic.
It's a road course move.
Road racers move.
Yeah,
you run the guy off the road as long as it's not dangerous. I mean, and the concept of track limits certainly doesn't apply in NASCAR at Watkins Glen. You know, there's three corners where they.
Well, turn one, they just totally ignore it.
Turn 1, turn 6. They just keep going until they. You know, look at Sonoma, where they bypass the carousel. They just keep, going as wide as they like. It's a little bit silly, I think. But, there was nothing wrong with that move. And as you say, the announcers were massively fishing for a controversy there. And, they didn't get one. I don't think there's any, I'm sure Chase is a bit pissed that he probably let it happen more than anything else.
Yeah. Then of course, I think he dropped second place to, I think, Logano.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, so we got another Watkins Glen run in the book. Fairly entertaining race, always is. They always put on a pretty good show there. So now we're headed towards the last race of the regular season. It looks as if Chase Elliott has clinched the regular season championship, and there is one spot left available. And you got Blaney and Truex are the two guys points wise who can get in there, but there's a slew of guys, eight or nine guys that with the win could get themselves in. There's a couple guys. I think they said Corey LaJoie is officially eliminated, even with the win he can't get in, and one other driver, I forget who the other one was.
I saw that as well. I can't think who it was.
But there's a number of guys that could snatch a win and take that away from either.
I think was it Ty Dillon?
Maybe, I don't know.
But
I know for sure. Yeah, Corey LaJoie is out, and there's actually some sort of rumblings that he may not even race Daytona, which I find odd. But so
Cody Ware and Corey LaJoie.
Cody Ware, yeah, that's right. I knew it was two guys whose name started.
So you've got hang on, 1, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 guys potentially could get in. Yeah, 15. Right. So 16th through to 30th still have a chance.
And you've got guys that are capable of winning in there.
I mean, you've got some
Yeah,
you mentioned. Sorry, Kozlowski. You mentioned earlier before we came on air. Stenhouse has won. McDowell's won there.
Yeah. So because Daytona's a crapshoot, anybody can win that. You have the big one, and then suddenly somebody you're not, a Chris Buescher or somebody's in the lead, right? That's another guy who can sneak his way in. So, and then of course the continuing saga of Kurt Busch still goes on. We don't know. He's supposed to be back for Daytona, but I don't know.
He's officially out for Daytona.
Oh, he's officially out for Daytona. Supposed to. Yes. Last we heard, supposed to be back for the playoffs. So,
correct.
But if like I say, it's going to come down to one of these guys, and it's honestly it's a must win for Blaney or Truex because there's a bunch of other guys that could win. Their best hope is that we have a repeat winner. Chase Elliott or Kyle Larson or Kevin Harvick wins there at Daytona. So, but so it'll be interesting to watch and see how it all plays out. So we'll see. I guess Ty Gibbs is still going to be in that 45 car once again.
Yeah,
that's the word. Yeah. Okay, all right. So, Joey, you care to try to pick a winner for Daytona? I know it's a crapshoot, but
Bubba Wallace.
But that's another guy who can get in with the win for sure. Yeah, he's honestly performed well at Daytona in the past and all the other plate races as well. Winner at Talladega last year. So, but I will go with Keselowski since I did mention it before the show off the air. So now with that, plus, Brad's my guy. It's he's had a tough year this year since he's left Penske Racing. I'd like to see something good happen for him. So that being said, Richard, so some news in Formula One regarding Daniel Ricciardo.
Yeah, the worst kept mid-season mid-season break rumor is that Danny Rick has had his contract mutually terminated by McLaren, opening the door for we imagine Oscar Piastri to step in, or any one of the other plethora of McLaren drivers that seem to be available at the moment. But it just hasn't really worked for Danny at McLaren. You look back at he's after leaving Red Bull, the sort of the Renault thing was a false dawn, and you think, well, gets into McLaren, he'll be a great fit for the team, but something just hasn't clicked for him. I mean, obviously, goodness me, I mean they did win, Monza last year in quite impressive style with a 1-2, leading home Lando Norris, the teammate there. But outside of that, it's been a struggle for Ricciardo, and out-qualified and outperformed on a, especially this year, a fairly regular basis by Lando Norris there. And, he was on the back foot even during pre-season testing. McLaren obviously had a lot of problems with their brake ducts and the overheating of the brakes and melting braking components. And they lost a lot of track time pre-season, and I think that probably impacted them quite badly. But it does open up the question of where next for Ricciardo, and I think there's one of 4 seats really still available, obviously to directly replace or indirectly replace Piastri at Alpine, which would be quite a turnaround considering the way he left the team 2 years ago when they were the Renault organisation to initially go to McLaren. Then there's the Alfa Romeo Sauber team, who we all imagine in the next few weeks will be announced that Audi are buying a substantial share in that team and will be rebadged as the Sauber Audi team. Or there's then probably the lesser of the 4 options would be the receipt available at Haas if Mick Schumacher moves on as expected, or the Williams drive to replace Nicholas Latifi, which is probably the least favourite of the 4. But I think as an image and an icon, as a brand, Ricciardo fitted really, really well at Williams. Williams obviously owned by an American consortium in Dalton Capital. We all know that Daniel Ricciardo spends a lot of time in the US, has a big fan base in the US, especially through the Drive to Survive series. Big NASCAR fan, big fan of Dale Earnhardt Sr., and spends a lot of time in Vegas and places like that. So I think that would be a good fit from that side of things. But I really hope he stays, because he's undoubtedly a top driver. It just
he's probably the most desirable free agent in Formula One right now. Yeah.
Yes.
But the problem is a lot of the top seats are spoken for. And this is, it is rather late in the going. When we're talking about contract negotiations, I mean, it's not as late as what McLaren pulled with James Hinchcliffe in the IndyCar series a while back.
No,
but it is kind of, deep into the summer break where a lot of these deals are made.
Oh, and if you read Ricciardo's comment, he did say, after discussions over recent months with Zach Brown. So obviously this has been something that's been on the table for a while now. So these guys aren't stupid. Danny would have had his his group, his people would have had feelers out, if you like, within other teams and other organizations with all the comings and goings. So I think we'd be a pretty safe bet that he's got at least 1 or 2 contracts on the table for him. So I expect him to be back, and I really do hope that he is back and that he does a good job there.
I do recall reading a blurb somewhere that Alpine, despite the past, would be happy to speak with Ricciardo about coming back to the team. Yes,
and I mean, I think when also the other aspect of this, obviously the previous issues, should we say, that a lot of people who used to be there are no longer there. There's a new management structure there at Alpine, and maybe that's all sort of forgotten about now. But when a driver of Daniel's quality is undoubtedly available on the market, you do look at it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I really hope that he does stay in the sport. I think he deserves to be in the sport. I think the fact that McLaren have actually released him rather than farmed him out to another one of their series does show his dedication to the sport and to the series and wants to stay in the series. So we'll see where we go from there, and we'll see what happens. But I hope he sticks around for a while longer, because I think not only as a driver he has real ability, but also as a personality, I think he fits into the series very, very well.
Yeah, I think he's very important to the series as a personality, for sure. He's one of the big stars that fans just can't get enough of. He's like a Tony Kanaan or Elio Castroneves in that kind of a sense there. But really, what I'm really interested in is what a Piastri Lando Norris pairing looks like at McLaren. We're talking about two relatively young, two relatively aggressive, very fast guys. gunning it out there. And I don't know if we're gonna go ahead and give Lando the number one status, or we're gonna let them fight it out. But I'd be really interested to see how that goes on the track next year.
Yeah, I think you by default, Lando is going to be the lead driver in that pairing. I think it just fits, right, for want of a better word. I think that where he, the level of respect he commands within the organisation and the team will lead that naturally. And that's not to say that Piastri is not, a high value commodity within the team and a high, a talent. But I don't think that he will, jump in there, straight off the bat and be the guy. I think it's going to take some time for that to happen.
Yeah, but you know what I mean by when I say, the number one driver, because there are,
sure,
there are lead drivers in the team. Then there are, number one drivers in a team where they dictate which equipment they get and what their teammate can and cannot do. And I don't think Lando's there. He's certainly not a Schumacher or a Hamilton or or a Nigel Mansell.
No.
Nigel. If you recall, good old Nigel Mansell was getting beat kind of squarely by Ricciardo Patrese the first couple races in '93 until I think he had a talk with Frank and said, "Look, who's the number one around here?" So, and then
that would have been quite impressive because they were racing in different series in '93.
92.
I think Mansell won the first 4 races in '92.
Okay, so 91.
Sorry.
91.
Sorry.
Right. Yeah. Hey, look, I'm an old guy. These years, buddy. A 91 Patrese beat Mansell a couple of times. And then when 92 opened up, Nigel took on a tear.
Nigel won the first 4, and I think
4 in a row. Yeah, sure did.
Centered at Monaco, didn't he? I think it was, wasn't it?
I believe so. Yeah. But anyway, that's well off topic.
Anyway, moving on.
Yeah. Moving on. So the other interesting thing with McLaren is now we have signed Rene Rand to their Formula E team. Okay, so that's at least one of their Formula E seats taken up, and there's still some speculation that Felix Rosenqvist will be in the other Formula E car, right? But we know at least one of those seats are taken up. But the interesting thing that's happened on the heels of the Ricciardo announcement is that all of the social media posts on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter that mention McLaren signing Alex Palou have been deleted. So what we don't know is McLaren backpedaling on maybe they haven't signed Palou, or are they taking this down while the legal action resolves itself, or while the legal action is resolved, because we know it's not going to resolve itself. But it is an interesting development when you consider that they've already, committed to an Indycar. They're committed to Rossi and Award for 2 of the cars. And Felix has been showing his worth lately. And Chip's making it very difficult for this whole thing to move forward with Palou moving to McLaren. So you got to wonder where the state of that sits. Joey, you heard anything on that or no?
No, I haven't heard anything. I mean, good luck getting any news from Ganassi related to this topic. This whole development, I mean, obviously it's unprecedented, right? I mean, we've never seen a situation like this where the reigning champ driving for the team he won the title with is in the middle of a lawsuit battle. And there's the whole, McLaren's offering the whole opportunity, F1 opportunity, which what does that really mean? It just means testing, let's be honest. Right now, with the way that this is all orchestrated, he's going to be in a situation like Colton and Pato was and get some testing. I mean, and I've said this on air to you guys too. And Richard knows how much I look at Palou and I'm like, everybody's talking Pato and Colton. Why aren't we talking about Palou? I know he's 25, but the kid's already came in and kicked ass and done what he needed to do, and he's showing his pace. If somebody's going to get an F1 shot out of IndyCar, I'd expect it to be him. But that said, you know, I don't think those shots are going to exist for a minute. But you know, all in all, I really don't know where this is going to play, because I mean, one move one way or another is going to completely tilt the tables. I will say this: if we don't get to see Alex Palou race at all next year in anything, that'll be the most demoralizing thing of all things, because he is an incredible talent, a very likable personality. I think this is one of those situations where it's a really difficult thing with the way that the business operates. I think there should be clarity on the business end. And I'm not saying that we need to make every personal thing, detail of drivers and teams public, but I feel like there needs to be some sort of, kind of like Colton Herta talked about on a recent post practice, post race topic, was, you know, having it to where things are a little bit more in the driver's favor as far as driver options and controls and dictatings like that. And, you know, I mean, usually we're not immune to this, right? Like the first deal is a friendly deal because you're just trying to make your foot in the door. The second deal is going to be something that's a little looser. And then by the time you're up there on the new garden level, you could probably dictate your own terms to a point. So it's all a progression, and I just think this is one of those things that I've heard rumblings that Palou didn't make a ton of money at Ganassi last year unless he won the championship. So maybe this is one of those situations where, you know, you follow the guaranteed money and that's what you chase, but there's clearly loopholes in there. So long-winded answers. I hadn't heard a thing. But,
Well, let's.
Wow, good job you hadn't heard anything, wasn't it? We'd be here all
Yeah. So, but let me ask you this, just to throw this out, okay?
Okay.
So hypothetically, say Chip Ganassi is successful with his lawsuits and Palou returns to Ganassi next year.
Okay.
All right. So, I mean, how fractured is that relationship going to be? You know, because I haven't heard anything really ill spoken from either party about the other, you know, nothing horrible. You know, as a matter of fact, you know, the Ganassi people have been very said, no, we intend to do the best we can this year and fight for the championship. And of course, Palou's been very careful not to say anything really demeaning towards his team other than the fact that I didn't make those quotes. So you got to wonder how easy it is to move on if that situation arises where he ends up right back at Ganassi making the smaller salary that that he was contracted to in the first place, and you just wonder how that plays out.
I mean, I personally
or if that's even possible.
I mean, personally, if so, in the situation, in the speculative situation that you just drew up, the hypothetical situation, you know, I look at it, Chip likes winners. Chip knows the business. I think it's a situation that if this was this big of a deal, Alex Palou is not running in the top 10, even if he's being, you know, doesn't have access to the same data as a lot of the other drivers during the week. You go look at the tape since the incidents happened and go look at where he's running at Mid Ohio and all these other places. I think Toronto was the only bad performance really that existed. I mean, the opening half of these races, he's over here lighting it up, running in the top 5. I mean, the pace is.
He got a podium at Nashville, didn't he?
Yeah, like the pace is clearly still there. He's not letting it. And I'll tell you what, if that's another thing, that shows me he's got so much damn mental toughness that it's not even funny to handle this at this stage, at this level. I mean, it's just incredible. So I think there's a way to do it. I think Zach Brown put a whole lot of people on notice of, hey, you want to hold on to your good drivers, you better hold on to them because we're coming and we're coming after everybody. And I think this put Chip on notice, because if Chip thinks he's got a Scott Dixon-esque driver for the next 20 years, well, let that be a lesson to Chip that, you know, you got to hold on to those boys. So I don't think it would be a fractured relationship. I think every relationship goes through things. We all go see teams go through things, and it's one of those situations of, I mean, you think back to some of the things that Elio went through with Penske, and Penske was in his corner, and, you know, back to tax situations back in the day, and that could have easily been a nope, goodbye, have a good one, bye-bye. No, we're here for you. So I think that there's a rally there. I think Palou loves his team. I think he loves the pit crew and everybody that's on there. So I wouldn't think there's any ill will. That the kicker is I don't know what. This is the thing that's bothered me, and I got to say this. You think back to when this all happened. Chip Ganassi Racing came out and said what they said. McLaren Racing said what they said. The only thing that I never understood is why couldn't it be both? And the only reason why is because Palou said, I will not be coming back to Ganassi. I'm, doing this and this and this. Thank you. Da, 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 da. So Palou doesn't say anything. I look at it like, why couldn't he be a McLaren Racing driver, going and doing testing in a Formula One car for 1 year, being with Chip on the pickup option, and then after that year's over, McLaren gets to dictate where they want to put him, whether it's their Formula E category, their IndyCar guy to replace somebody. Maybe he ends up progressing on the F1 testing and they have him fully immersed over in Europe. They could have gone a plethora of different ways with that and really played with the words on that to say, hey, yeah, you're a McLaren Racing contract driver and you're racing with Ganassi for the final year of the contract, but kind of like being a developmental driver at a different team. Callum Ilott, Ferrari Academy driver, racing an IndyCar with Juncos.
Montoya was the same, wasn't he? When he was, first with
Ganassi,
Williams.
Yeah, he was loaned. He was loaned to Williams, in exchange for Zanardi.
Yeah,
because Zanardi moved over to Williams and it just picked the most god awful time where Williams had the worst car that they've had after a stretch of having really good cars. Yeah, I mean, Zanardi gets over there and the car's a pig.
Well, that was Ganassi's second, or that was Zanardi's second attempt over there too. Let's not forget. So
right.
But who says that little situation that Richard and Frank y'all just kind of talked about? Who says that's not what we end up seeing materialize and manifest out of this? What the new terms might be? Maybe it becomes you're there for a year. It's more or less a loan situation, but you're already tied to this. We'll alter the terms of the agreement and da 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 da. It may not, but it may.
Because you've got Colton doing testing with McLaren as a shared option with Andretti. So and of course Zach and Michael get along famously, but Chip and Zach do not.
Yeah. Well,
is IndyCar aligned with the FIA?
Not in a way that they need to be.
Okay. Because obviously the FAA have their contract recognition board or whatever it's called, which is obviously what Piastri and Alpine will be going through. I just wonder if eventually you'll get to that level of.
No, it's
discussion.
kind of fun. It's kind of funny you say that though, because I've often wondered if there's certain stipulations within a leadership circle, like IndyCar's version of the charter system, that play with those type of details. I do think at some point we're going to see a closer bond with the FIA and IndyCar at some point, because I think that it's going to be a matter of time before, I've said this for a while to a lot of people is when you start looking at Dan Anderson and Indy Pro 2000 and USF 2000 and the way that develops, but you look at how the USF 3, USF 4, those Honda scholarships are starting to funnel their way to Indy Lights, which is owned by IndyCar, but the other two branches of the road to Indy below Indy Lights, Indy Lights, not IndyCar. But, you got the whole road to Indy, USF 2000, Indy Pro 2000, owned by Dan Anderson, Indy Lights, IndyCar, owned by Penske Entertainment. You start to look at those things, and it's like, if you're really trying to build this to the FIA, you let the FIA come to Indianapolis and have another F1 race there. You start to look at the way the parts and moving pieces go with the US series, which the SCCA, FIA, US F3, F4, they all have this kind of unique situation playing out. So I'm kind of curious if we see a redesign or a redevelopment of the ladder series, and maybe that helps funnel over more of that bond within the FIA, in IndyCar. I don't know if it'll be in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, but I do think at some point it makes more sense to happen. In some ways, it helps. Who knows? Maybe that's also a better way to help the licensing system to get IndyCar drivers over to F1 for that matter too. Not that
I like
a series, but yeah.
Yeah, but the IndyCar Championship does guarantee you a super license. It's 40 points right there.
Yep.
Yeah, but if you go through the European ladder, turning up at one race guarantees you a super license, pretty much.
Yeah, that's true too.
Wasn't there like something found that like if you win the Cup championship, it's worth the equivalent of winning an Indy Pro 2000 title?
Yes.
Oh, it's something.
Yes, yeah. The Cup championship doesn't count for much if you want an FIA super license. So that's why Kimi's coming over here, but you're not seeing Kyle Larson go over there. So. That being said, another bit of news, Andretti Autosport has unveiled plans for a massive new facility in Fishers, Indiana, going to be called Andretti Global Motorsport, which is, as a matter of fact, the moniker they were using for their F1 team. So they've got, it's going to create about 500 more jobs in that area, which is great for that area. It's, if you look at the plans, it's a beautiful facility. It looks similar to what McLaren's got out there in Woking. So,
where?
Woking.
Thank you. Sorry.
Woking, Frank.
Carry on.
I always get that one wrong, and I do it just to make you mad, Richard. Just to piss you off. but at the same time, it seems as if Andretti's effort to get that Formula One team have really stalled. So, but the fact that they're still building this massive facility, it shows me that there must be some glimmer of hope somewhere for them to do that.
Well,
but I can't.
Nothing in their press release announces anything to do with Formula One, does it?
No.
Or it's Formula E team for that matter. It's strictly IndyCar, Indy Lights, and IMSA is the only thing that they tabbed on that press release.
Yeah, I think with the way Formula E used to work, and I don't know if it still does. It's been a while since I looked into it, but all the teams and all the cars. This was when on the first generation Gary, it was actually based out of Donington Park. And that's where all the cars were held and maintained and built by individual teams, because Penske Dragon Racing were actually based out of Los Angeles, and that's where their offices were and the engineering group were, but the actual car was maintained and developed out of Donington. So I don't know if they still do that in Formula E. I doubt it, but Andretti may have a European base in Silverstone or wherever for Formula E.
All right. So with that being said, we are out of time for this week. So so next week we've got another off week for both IndyCar and Formula One. NASCAR will be running at Daytona, and we'll be back with you folks in a week. I want to thank the Hoobazoo Radio Network. I want to thank Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. I want to thank you, Joey. And I want to thank you, Richard. And I want to thank you folks that listen to us week in and week out. But until next week, good night.
WHOOBAZOO, that's Hoobazoo.com. Enter website.